Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Life's Legends podcast, the podcast where we talk about the stories that have shaped us throughout our lives. I am once again joined by my good friend Nate, as I was last month. Say hi.
Hello.
You were just on last month, so we don't have to go through all the icebreaker questions, unless, of course, your dream or anything else has drastically changed, although I don't think it has.
No, all answers to the test are on last week's episode, so go back and watch that one if you want to know anything about me.
Yeah, just go back and watch that one.
Yeah,
that would be fine.
Yeah.
I will say, I will ask, you talked about you were in the midst of writing a book last time.
Yeah.
How's that going?
That's going really well in the way that I'm letting it sit. So any good piece of art should maybe sit for a time before you really get it out there. It's with test readers right now. And so this month will be test readers, and then next month I will make any changes, and then hopefully in between October and December is like when I'm hoping to publish that. It'll be available on Amazon. It's called Heaviest Heart. It's a dark fantasy novella. So that's what I've got cooking.
Heaviest Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Dark fantasy novella. First of all, this is a lot further along than I actually thought it was. That's great.
Yeah, it's close.
It's
before 2024 is the plan.
Awesome.
That's the deadline that I'm putting for myself.
Okay. Well, it's good to have. Listen, that's good. That's a good practice, I think.
Otherwise, I'd be working on it forever, and that it's no good. So
sure.
There's a certain point where I have to stop, and we're getting there. So
it's time to get it out. Yeah. Now, and I'm already diverting, and this is not what this podcast is about, but you said it's a novella. What is the difference between a novel and a novella?
So, I'm going to give you the English professor.
Okay, well, this is why I asked.
Low down. You've got, hint fiction, which is, 50 words. Flash fiction, which is, 250 to 500 words.
Wait a minute. I'm going to have to stop. There is a, do people publish 50 words?
Yeah. Yeah,
How do you write anything is it like a poem?
It's more poetic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fun little exercise challenge kind of thing you can do.
Okay.
Tell a story in 20 words, 3 words.
That's crazy.
You can look them up; they're kind of cool.
Okay, I'm sorry I cut you off.
No,
Hint
that's
fiction,
all right.
Flash fiction,
and then there is you get into short story territory there.
Okay.
After that, and the novella is I'm blanking on the amount that it is, but it's a short chapter book.
Okay.
Is essentially. Sure. You've got novella, and then you've got a slightly larger proper short story, and then you've got a proper novel is the idea.
Huh. So, there's degrees to this thing.
Yeah.
Now, do you think you'd ever want to write a huge novel like that? Or do you like writing the shorter stories?
So I told my friend that these novellas that I'm writing are like the training montage to the actual novel.
I love a good training montage.
So that's the idea. Is I'm trying to learn as much as I can with these about the publishing process and honing writing skills, and then someday I'll get to the big one. But it's a big time sink. It's a lot harder.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, obviously, I would imagine, yeah. I just didn't know if you would if you liked this specific area, or if it was like you said, the training montage on the way. To which is
fun. Cool. It's going really well. But
great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
I don't know how this turned into the How's Nate's Book Doing podcast.
No, that's okay.
But that's great. I'm glad to hear it's going to be out hopefully this year. Definitely before 2024,
as
the deadline says.
That's the plan.
Okay, so this week, probably should have said this at the beginning of the episode. This week we're going to talk about the TV show Chaotic. It originally aired on 4Kids, at least here in the States, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know if it aired anywhere else, but it definitely aired here on 4Kids TV. I remember seeing commercials for it because I watched 4Kids on Saturday. Not actually this show.
Sure.
So my experience, I have none. I had none.
Very fresh.
No experience with this. Either the card game, which is card game was first, right? And then the show?
Yeah, I've got a whole timeline that we can talk about later.
Okay, all right. Well, I won't get into
But
that then.
it's quite the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're focusing on the 4Kids television show is
Yeah.
the idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, before we go there,
Yeah.
I do the shout out thing. I don't know if you're prepared for
Do it.
a shout out, but I'll go first. My shout out, I like to stay in the lane, and so I'm going with another 4Kids TV show.
Okay.
My favorite 4Kids TV show, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2001 4Kids version. I loved that show.
Nice.
I watched a lot of it as a kid. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good. If you watched Chaotic, I promise that you will also like that.
Yeah. I haven't seen it. I'll have to check it out.
It's good. It's good.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm a big Turtles fan in general, but
Cool.
I'll watch most things the Turtles are involved in.
Yeah.
But that's one of my that's like one of my favorite things the Turtles are involved in. And there's probably a lot of nostalgia going on there too. But
Yeah.
Anyway, what do you have a shout out? This
No, I'll early 2000s kind of shows, and that's where this is from. One of the other show I almost picked to talk about is X-Men Evolution. It's
heard of that one too.
X-Men show. You can find it on Disney Plus. All the X-Men are teenagers, and it's very angsty and fun. It's looking back, it's a lot more angsty than I remember. But
Well, it always is because when
yeah.
you were that age, you felt that
you're like,
angsty.
oh, these guys are so cool.
Right.
And it is cool. I love it a lot. But definitely go for that. It's one of my favorite X-Men iterations. I'm a big X-Men fan, and
Nice.
seeing them all as kids learning their powers, and it's got a lot of cool stuff in it. So
Nice.
yeah,
Well, then I'll have to check out X-Men Evolution.
There you go.
All right. Well, you're giving me all kinds of things to do. Okay, so we're talking about Chaotic. I've talked to several people about this, and
Yeah.
this is another side note. I've talked to several people about this, and every time I say we're gonna go over Chaotic, we're gonna talk about Chaotic, they always say, "Oh, do you mean Chaotix?" Like with an X at the end.
oh
Do you have any idea why it seems like that was what was in my mind? I feel like we've all been like, what's that called? Where like, is it the Mandela effect? Where it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it
something
seems
like
like
that,
everyone, like, I've talked to like 3 people, and I thought this too when you first said chaotic. I was
Gotcha.
like, wait a minute, does he mean this thing? I don't know.
Um,
It wasn't ever chaotix, right? It was always chaotic.
It's always chaotic. There's something like on the tip of my brain that's like there's like a Team Chaotix or something
Okay,
like
so
that.
Sonic the Hedgehog, right?
Oh, maybe that's it.
In Sonic Heroes,
Yeah.
there is a Team Chaotix with an
Okay.
X, and that's what I
That's
thought
what I'm thinking
this was.
Right.
But I talked to like 3 other people, and I was like, "Do we all just have a deep Sonic Heroes?"
No, it's
Maybe
It's just chaotic.
yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. I
Yeah.
just that like I couldn't find that it was like at some point, but I
And
was
it's,
like, did,
it's very important that it's just chaotic, and I'll explain that later. That's actually kind of an interesting lore
"Oh, nice."
theory. so I'm gonna double down on that and say it's actually very important that
Good.
you drop the S.
We're baiting the line,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen. Come on,
Big
in the
lore
water.
implications with that, but that's
All right. Well, Nate, why did you choose chaotic?
yeah. I mentioned nostalgia. I watched this as a teenager, early 2000s. Me and my brothers played the card game. There's a card game attached to this, and we're still friends and love each other somehow after.
That's great.
That.
You love to see it in siblings.
But I remember really liking the show and really enjoying it. So I wanted an extra excuse to come back to it, and this was the perfect avenue. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you revisited it since you were a kid?
I have gone back and watched an episode or 2 since being a
Okay.
teenager, but not
Yeah.
gone through the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I did for this.
Yeah.
So this is the most chaotic I've taken in for a while.
Nice. I mean, certainly it's the most chaotic I've ever taken it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But good. So, you've answered when you watched this. So let's just jump into it.
Yeah.
It's no, now normally I like to start with characters. I like to start in that range, and we can definitely start there. But is there a different place you want to start? This is kind of a different series than stuff I've done in the past.
Yes.
And I think I have more to say almost about the setting than I do about the characters. But we can
Right.
start wherever you'd like.
Can I give a background to where it had come from?
Please.
Where it comes from, because it's really interesting. I'll give part of it, and then we'll come back to
Starting in the medium.
yeah. just a little bit before we get into the characters.
Just touching it.
But it started as Grolls and Gorks in 2000.
Wow. You know what? That feels right.
Yeah, and this was a Denmark, a Danish card game.
Okay.
It was Grolls and Gorks. It had a couple of creators. And then just a year later, in 2001, one of the creators, a graphic novelist, kind of rebranded it, kept a lot of the mechanics, but rebranded it, freshened up a lot of the art in 2001. And it did so well that 4Kids, right at the time, was looking for their own big hit. They were dubbing a lot of anime.
Yeah.
But they wanted their own thing. Yeah. So they reached out to this group. So it was Grolls and Gorks in 2000. It was Chaotic Now or Never, I think, in 2001. And then it was fully rebranded in, I think, the next year. Or a couple of years later by 4Kids as just Chaotic. And they're working directly with the graphic novelist. So they would develop the cards and the lore, and then 4Kids would take that story and produce this show. So it came to the U.S. in 2006, so a couple of years later, as they had to develop it. And then it lasted 4 years, stopped in 2010, is when the hiatus struck. And there was some trouble with that. So I'll leave that part for our conversation at the end.
Okay.
Because the final season 3, the show, officially has 3 seasons, and season 3 is very short, and it cuts off very abruptly.
Yes. I agree.
So I'll come back to its story.
Okay.
When we get to after the story, maybe. But that's where this is coming from. Is it's this graphic novelist, as I understand it, wanting to make his own card game, and then 4Kids liking the concept and making the show. So a lot of the normal human characters don't really exist, as far as I know, in the proper lore of the card game. There are homages to them. In one of Hearing's cards later on, you can see Kaz's shadow.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's stuff like that.
That's kind of cool.
It's kind of cool.
That's cool.
But especially early on, there wasn't too much crossover. But whatever showed up in the show, they would make cards of. So there's the background. That's a bit of background there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool to know. Because I mean, obviously, I didn't know that. But yeah, that's interesting. So we'll jump into characters then, since we're already kind of here.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the main 4. We'll start there. Let's just start with Tom.
Yep.
How do you feel about Tom?
Tom is serviceable. He's got big protagonist energy.
Yeah, that's super true.
And that's not too much more. He's not the most interesting part of the show, I think. I don't know if you disagree.
No, I don't. I do not disagree. Out of the main 4, I don't want this to be confused with I like him the least.
Mm-hmm.
I just am the least interested in him.
Yeah. What's really funny at the beginning of the show is he's super popular, and he's like handsome and good looking, and everybody loves him. And he's also really good at this trading card game.
So we're already
you're like, all right, this is not a real person.
This is not real. That's not a real guy.
So, but he has what's kind of interesting. He's got like very light jock energy. He's very headstrong and kind of out there. But he works really well to just explore the world. Right? He's completely new to Chaotic and Param, which is where all the creatures are at.
Right.
So he works for that.
Yeah, and I think that there's a little bit, at least a little bit, I think, of an aspect of Tom works well as a viewer insert kind of character.
Right.
He has enough of a personality, I think, where he's not totally like that. Like, you know, you see some characters that are like purposely made to be the most buoyant things in existence,
Right.
so that anyone could be there. But
Yeah.
like, he's got a little bit of everything, right? He's like you said, there's like light jock energy going on at the same time. He's really good at this card game. He's like generally just like a good guy.
Yeah.
You know, he wants the best for
very-
Param and
Right.
and his friends. Like, I don't know, there's like big Boy Scout energy he's
Yeah.
got going on. I'm fine with that. I like Boy Scout. I'm fine with that
Right.
kind of energy.
It works. It
Yeah.
works. He's very competitive, and he'll always try to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that is completely serviceable
Yeah.
for.
I think my favorite episode with him was his first battle against the Codemaster. Oh, Codemaster.
I think it's Krillin
I think it
first.
is. I think it is. Yeah.
I don't remember the second one he fights.
I liked that. I think it was like 2 episodes, like
Yeah.
the back-to-back one. I like those episodes. I kind of liked how he like. It's just like how he like learns, like Krillin is like teaching him
yeah.
kind of how to like play this game at a better level, and like, yeah, he's just a good main character. He's just serviceable is a good word.
Serviceable. I like Tom. I like Tom.
I actually like Tom. I don't dislike him.
Yeah.
I definitely he is.
He's not a deep character. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm asking myself more questions about Tom. I feel satisfied with the Tom that I know, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
So which one of the other 3 do you want to go to?
So the next main one is Kaz.
I agree.
What we didn't say right was Tom is overworlder. He's the main
yes.
overworld guy. Best
Yeah.
friends with all the strongest overworld characters.
Yeah.
But
In the quick aside,
Yeah, do it.
and this is kind of medium. Like we're getting a little bit into the real world here. Like in the card game,
yeah.
is Maxor like this incredible card? Like, is
Um,
he really good?
I really assume so because
Okay.
he's so rare that I've never seen him ever.
Oh, okay.
Um,
This is not. He's an.
But
illusion.
no, I think Maxor. Yeah, he's one of the top tier kind of cards.
Yeah.
He's really strong.
I mean, they definitely portray that in the
Right.
show. I mean, he's the leader of the Overworlders.
Yep.
He's yeah. I was kind of wondering. I was wondering if it wasn't like one of these things where it's like, well, actually, in the card game, he's like, he's an okay card. He's
yeah.
just not the best, and there's like different strategies. Like,
Right. Pure stat wise, he's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
He's a bit too strong. And then when as card games do, new cards come out and they're stronger, they just come out with a new Maxor, and he's
and he's better.
stronger.
Yeah.
So
I do
Maxor's on the top.
I do like the new Maxor, but we're
Yeah,
not on
yeah,
him yet. Kaz. We're on Kaz.
We're on Kaz.
The
Underworld
Underworld guy. Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Kaz?
I think I enjoyed Kaz way more in this recent
Good.
uh,
That's
recent
great to hear.
watching of the show. I like Kaz a lot.
Yeah.
He's really hard to pin down. He's kind of a dork.
Yeah.
He's real weird.
Oh, yeah.
But he's also like really good at the game. You get the
Yeah.
idea that he's one of the better players out of the 4. I think Kaz is maybe the best. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but he's the most experienced.
Definitely,
in
yeah.
chaotic, right? Is Tom comes in, Kaz shows him the ropes.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks Kaz is really good.
Yeah.
And it's cool. His relationship with the underworld is maybe the most interesting part of the show for me, other than like main story plots. Just
Sure.
How Kaz interacts with this grungy, strong, reckless kind of group of creatures. My favorite episode, one of my favorite episodes, I think it's season 2, early season 2, is when he gets challenged by Hammer Doom, the little goblin guy.
Yeah.
And he actually has to fight in the arena with a creature.
Yeah.
And that's him working that out, because he doesn't want to back down, because that would be letting down all the underworlders that he really likes, and he'd never be able to come back. But obviously he can't fight a creature.
No.
So
yeah,
it's a fun little puzzle, and it's great for.
And it's even like it's at least shown because Hammer Doom has a match with a creature before
Right.
Kaz.
Yeah.
And like you actually see that like he's actually not a pushover. Like he's not even like a weak creature.
No.
Like I'm gonna be honest with you. I think if you said okay, square up with Hearing, I feel okay. I don't like. I know there's some magic stuff I'm gonna have to worry about,
Right.
but like if I can get to him fast enough, I might be able to choke him out. Before
Maybe
he
get
can
Hearing. Yeah.
And even then, though, I'm honestly like I don't really know.
Yeah.
He starts spitting fire at me. I don't know what to do, but.
Yep.
But like Hammer Doom is definitely, they have that match I think first to clearly be like, yeah, Kaz is not gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
Kaz is
Yep.
not.
It's bad.
That's the episode where the giant robot's introduced, right?
Yes.
That's how Kaz wins, right?
Yes. Yeah. As they bring in, he can use battle gear.
I
So
love
he gets a giant robot.
that giant robot. But
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, Kaz, we're on Kaz.
Kaz.
Yeah, his relationship to the underworld throughout this story is, I'll say, confusing.
Yeah.
At points, because like sometimes it's not at all. Sometimes I'm like, that makes sense. I see, like, and like I get that Kaz would be like, these guys are cool. Like I played their deck in the
Right.
card game.
Yeah,
Like this is like I also imagine that Kaor is a similar kind of card to Maxor.
Yeah. He's
They
super
very
strong. Yeah,
much
yeah.
feel like the inverse of each other. Like not, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
like
They're meant to
that's
be
the underworld.
the
one.
two top cards,
Right.
kind of. There's obviously more nuanced strategies that are maybe more broken, but if
Sure.
you just want plain stats, then Max or Kaor.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like he is cool. Like I'm with Kaz on that. I'm fine. The problem is like sometimes he's just evil.
Right.
And I'm like, Kaz, buddy, he's just evil. Like he's not like
Yeah.
they're not good guys. And like Kaz is not evil. That's the
Right.
thing. It's not like he is, which is actually, it's interesting that like Kaor I think rides this like line of definitely a bad guy, but not all the way to
Right.
that side. Because
Yeah.
then there's Von Blut a
Yes.
little bit further.
Yeah.
And that's the one that they link with Clay, which we'll talk
Right.
about later.
So it's really fun going back to like the Hammer
Yeah.
Doom episode.
I'm sorry, yeah.
No, that's okay, because that's a really good showcase of you can kind of see Kaor has a soft spot for Kaz.
Yeah!
Where he's like, Kaz wins, and he can use his battle gear. It's totally fine, and I kind of love Kaz, but I'm not going to tell anybody that.
No.
So but like later episodes, he's not like Kaor doesn't mess around
No.
with the humans.
No.
He's like, you're going to shut up and stay. You can be around and
Yeah.
hang out,
Sure.
but don't mess anything up, or
Right.
I'll like melt you with a fireball.
Yeah.
Is
Well, there's even that episode where he's there. They got that like I forget what the actual gear is called, but it's like the excavator thing.
yeah, the
And they're
big
digging
tank.
into
Yeah.
Kiru City, and they're like, and Kaz is there and like trapped with them, and he takes Kaz's scanner. And he's like, I love, there's like one moment where he like, Kaz is like slowly reaching to get, Kaor's like asleep, and he's trying to reach his scanner. Kaor like doesn't even open his eyes, is like, don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's funny about it to me is like, the easiest thing for Kaor is just to squish him.
Yeah.
But he doesn't squish him.
No.
Like, he's fine. And he will give the scanner back.
Yeah.
What's crazy...
He's trustworthy. He's got
Yeah.
like kind of a layer of honor almost.
Right.
But very I don't know, it's weird. He's very underhanded, but he still will keep his word.
Yeah.
So
And I think some episodes make him look like more on the good side, and some episodes make him look more on the bad side. It just
Yeah.
kind of depends where it is. But I think it's interesting to see Kaz interact with them.
yeah.
And this strange kind of relationship that he does have with these underworlders.
Yeah. It's
And
fun.
like all of them he's got like, and clearly what I think is cool is like, as he is the guy who's been here for the longest out of our main group, he has like these like channels to like set up, right? He has this thing with hearing where he's like I'll bring you these Dractyl scales and
Right.
you're gonna hook me up with stuff like,
Yeah, he's
almost
got a
like
guy.
he's backdoor. He's got a guy.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like it shows like, okay, you've been here for a while. You started to explore stuff, and you're really trying. Like,
Yeah.
you're figuring out how to do this in what I have to imagine is a relatively a situation full of a little bit of animosity can't imagine that Underworld City or anywhere else in the Underworld is super friendly.
No, probably not.
But again, we've somehow endeared ourselves to Kaor, so
Yep.
what do I know?
Yep.
Yeah, I liked Kaz. I liked Kaz a lot. I don't know. In fact, I could almost promise you I would not have liked Kaz as a child.
Oh, sure.
But I like Kaz as an adult. I think he's neat.
He's fun.
He is definitely a dork, though. And
Yeah.
listen, I am.
But they make it fun.
Yeah.
He's fun.
I'm a big proponent, by the way. There's this episode, right? I don't know if you know. I'm sure you do know what episode I'm going to talk about. But there's this episode, right, where he won't let it go. He won't let the fact that chaotic is real go. And he's like with a school psychologist. And like,
Oh, yeah.
he's like, no, I swear it's real. He's trying to get Peyton to like prove it to him. I just can't do it. And like, the thrust of the episode is like Tom is gonna like admit, because Tom is like, yo, keep your voice down, bro.
Right.
Not here.
Yeah.
Like, let's calm down about this, which is the correct answer. I want to be crystal clear.
Yep.
That's what you do. But Kaz won't let it go. Kaz is gonna die on the hill. And like, they kind of they like want Tom to stick up for him.
Right.
And I do think that that's good.
Yeah,
I think that that's a good thing. I think that the moral of like, stick up for your friends, especially when he is right. Kaz is correct.
Right.
It does sound
just
crazy.
Yeah.
But he is right. Chaotic is real. But yeah, man, Kaz, you gotta let it go. It's like those moments, and like then he builds the portal. Oh, that
The season 1 up where we're going
that
there.
one.
Yeah.
Not yet. That was tough for me to take. I'll be honest with that episode. I'm just gonna go.
Yep.
The episode is I don't know if you remember the episode. I don't know if you're listening, if you've watched this series, but if you remember the episode, where he like builds like a scanner, but it's like huge and
For
like,
a science project.
Yeah, for like the science fair.
Yeah.
And like it works.
Right.
And then they caught like Omar in the Underworld copies it.
Right.
And they get the access, and like all of Chaotic is then going berserk because creatures are coming in, and then they make their way to the human world. And they have this big battle in the human world, right?
Right.
I'm sitting there watching this episode. I'm like, oh my word! I'm like, everything's gonna change now. I'm like, this is gonna be like a totally different thing. I'm like, because I thought this is where we're heading.
Right.
Because I genuinely was like, at some point, creatures are going to make their way to the real world, and we're going to have like real world problems at some point. And so when it happened, I was like, this is much, because I think it's like episode 12. I mean, it's like
season
real
1.
early.
Yeah.
And I was like, this happened way earlier than I thought. I was like, where are we going to go for the next like, however many episodes, like 40 episodes that are still left? And I was like, and then it's just a dream.
Just a dream.
He
He wakes up at the
and
end.
then they do it again. He calls like the one girl. And then I'm like, this is also a dream, isn't it? And yes, it's also a dream.
Double dream fake
I
out.
was just like, what? Why did you do that to me?
Yeah. It's definitely a concept that I think they thought was cool, but they couldn't take it in that direction, probably.
Yeah, and it was cool, but not
But
real.
Yeah.
I just was like, and honestly, it like to think about the whole scope of the story.
Yeah.
I did think it was heading there. Right around season 2, I began to think, okay, season 1,
Yeah.
I always thought for the whole season, I was like, eventually we're making our way to the human world, and this is going to be
Right.
like a problem. Like
Right.
we're gonna have to figure this out. But then once season 2 started, I was like, we might be staying in Param. We might be going that way more.
Yeah.
Like our main 4 are going to spend more time in Param, and they're going to spend more time in dealing with the things that are going on there, which is what ends up happening. But at that point, I thought they were coming, and I thought it was happening.
Could have been a direction.
Kaor and Max were fighting in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, it's a dream. It's like, I was burned on that one. But yeah, all that to say, yeah, Kaz is a dork. I mean, he had a dream about building a scanner for a science project. That's not a thing that I've dreamed of. And I'm a dork, and I think that I am a dork.
Yep.
But I'm hard with Tom on this one. There's a time just to maybe keep it under wraps there, Kaz. But
Yeah.
I like him.
Kaz.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like Kaz.
I like Kaz a lot.
But Yeah, he's
Yeah.
definitely I think everything you said I think is right.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you have more on Cass?
No, not for right now.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm sure we can come back. Peyton or Sarah? Who do you want to do?
Let's talk about Peyton.
Good.
Peyton's maybe favorite.
I
if,
love Peyton.
If Kaz isn't, then Peyton is. He's
Those
really
are my
great.
two too. Those are the two
yeah.
I had
Peyton
on.
and
To, yeah.
Kaz.
Very different characters.
Very different characters. I like Peyton's main thing, right? He's the chubby, eats a lot kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very stereotypical, but
also
he's got this like Jack Black energy.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
And not only that, right?
2006, right? This
right,
is the height.
yeah,
This is the height of Jack Black. This is good. This is a good time to have Jack Black energy.
But
you know what? That's what it is.
Yeah, he's fun and he's goofy, but he's also really good at the game.
Yeah.
Which is cool. He doesn't just mess around.
Yeah.
He has this really unique style of playing chaotic where he just does these outlandish, weird things.
Yeah.
But it's like a really advanced strategy, most of which doesn't exist in the proper card game.
Sure.
But he just goes wild and does fun things, and it's cool to see them stick to like Peyton's playing style is very different from like Tom's.
Yeah.
So it's
much
fun.
different. I think especially at the beginning, I think that as the show goes, and I could be wrong about this, but as the show goes, I actually think we have less matches that we see.
Yeah.
At least in season 2.
Yeah.
And then maybe season 3 we have more. But I don't know. Anyway, there's still matches all
Season
the way through.
1 maybe has the most.
We definitely spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Especially when we're introduced to Peyton, we see a lot of that, like how he plays that is different than Tom and Kaz, that we know how they kind of function. I actually thought, when you said you thought Kaz was the best, I actually think that Peyton might be the best after watching it. Like, which is
playing style wise.
Yeah,
or
like
winning at the game.
Yeah, I don't know, and I really have no idea. Honestly, it seems like sometimes they fluctuate in different ways, but like depending on what
Tom like never loses.
Right.
But like Kaz and Peyton are kind of.
But it doesn't feel like he's the best.
Right.
Yeah, but he doesn't. Yeah.
You can see people respect Peyton and Kaz.
Yeah.
In like the world of chaotic.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
I like that you said he had Jack Black energy. That really
Jack Black energy. I think that's it. I don't know. It came to me.
In my head.
Yeah.
Because it was like, he's the chubby. He's definitely the chubby guy, but like also like he seems like relatively popular and like chill. Right. Like people
got a ton
like
of confidence.
Him.
Yeah. Super funny.
He has confidence,
but like really, really chill and friendly.
Yeah.
I love the episode where he's introduced because you don't know he's going to be a character necessarily.
Sure, yeah.
And he's this really weird guy that's maybe very brash and kind of rude to Tom at first.
Right.
But then he's like, no, it's totally chill, man. You're awesome. We're going to keep fighting and be friends. And Tom's like, oh, cool.
Well, okay.
That's not where I thought we were at all. But he's great.
I like Peyton. You want to talk about glow-ups, by the way, between season 1 and the other seasons?
Big animation change.
Peyton got a huge glow-up. I mean, that hair in season 1, what is going on? And in season 2, I was like, okay, I got it now. I get where we are. But, yeah, I like Peyton a lot. I like the chill energy. I like that he's like the surfer dude of this.
Yeah. And I think maybe characters like Peyton, I could see getting very old very quickly.
Sure.
But I think he's entertaining all the way through. I don't think I get tired of Peyton's character. He's not like a gimmicky guy, you know?
No.
Where he's still got that confidence and that like friendliness to him where I'm like, I could hang out with Peyton and it would be weird and crazy, but it would be fun.
It would be weird.
Yeah.
I think I could hang out with Peyton too.
Yeah.
I think I could hang out with any of the main 4.
Yeah.
I think Kaz would get annoying to me eventually.
Sure.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think eventually I'd be like, Kaz.
Tom's very competitive and Kaz is pretty out there.
Yeah.
So you'd need the right...
Yeah. I think I could make it with Tom.
Right.
It's just like, I definitely could make it. I would want to hang out with Peyton.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. let's move on to Sarah.
Yeah.
We'll move on to Sarah before I ask this
Yep.
another question. But I have thought Sarah's interesting to me, but I don't have, I think, a ton of
Yeah.
necessarily like a ton of thoughts on Sarah, other than like sometimes they have her just play the girl one.
Sure.
Like, there are some episodes where it's like she's blatantly the girl one, and then there are other episodes where they don't, like, that's not a factor at all. It seems like she's just here with the rest of them.
Yeah. Luke, let's do a little pop quiz.
Oh, boy.
Let's do a pop quiz.
Okay.
So each of the 4 characters have chaotic names, right? They're usernames.
Oh man. Okay. All right.
What's Tom's? Do you know Tom's?
Yeah. Is it just Major Tom?
It's just Major Tom.
Okay. Yeah.
What's Kaz?
Is it Kid Kaor?
That's correct.
Okay. I was worried it was going to be King, but it was
No,
Kid.
it's Kid. Kid
Okay.
KR. Great name. I love that.
Yeah.
This one's a little harder. What's Peyton's?
He's the Peytonic Master.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm worried. I know where we're headed.
What is Sarah's
I
username?
don't know. I have no idea. Do they ever say it?
Here's what it is.
They do say it then.
According to the wiki, it is Chaotic Queen, spelled with a KW for Queen. Chaotic Queen. They never mention it in the show.
They don't say it in the show.
They never
That's
say
what
it
I
in the
thought.
show. And that's kind of my problem with Sarah. I really like Sarah, but they don't do squat with her.
No. They really don't.
What's the other thing about Sarah is... So I'm on a Sarah tirade right now, but...
Go, please. Take
she's
off.
the only person that has a scan of the Danian Queen. She's the
Oh, yeah.
only person who has a scan of the Danian Queen. We never see her use it.
You're right.
She never uses it, and it's just that. I really like Sarah. I like her relationship with the other 3 characters. They have, I think it's season 3. It might be season 2. I think it's 2 because they go Scanamarillion actually, so it's season 2, where this girl comes
Yeah.
in and all 3 of the boys go head over heels,
Yeah.
and Sarah gets really annoyed.
Sure.
And they're like, I guess we've still got Sarah. Can't have a pretty girl around, but we still have Sarah. Right? There's no like romantic interest between any
No.
of the characters, which would have been really easy to do.
I'm almost surprised that they didn't.
Yeah.
When she was introduced, because she's introduced in an episode. I'm sorry.
No, go for
your
it.
Sarah tirade. But when she was introduced. Tom finds her in Param.
Right.
Right. And so I did think, I was like, okay. I was like reading the tea leaves. I was like, eventually
Right.
these 2 are gonna have a thing.
Yeah, you think protagonist and girl character.
Right.
Right.
But
And-
it really doesn't happen.
No.
At all. Like,
And even like later on, I could almost see Peyton and Sarah. They have a really interesting
got a
rapport
thing
where
going on.
they kind of... No, it's not quite flirting, but
No.
they have a really unique friendship, I think.
yeah.
And then she
They're
like
clearly
tolerates
tighter.
Kaz. Yeah.
Like if we were splitting into duos,
Right.
You know, if we're searching a house in Scooby Doo,
Yeah.
they're going and Kaz and Tom are going the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's a really fun character, but I think you only see her battle like a handful of
I
times.
don't. Yeah, I know that she does. I can remember times in the Betadrome where she goes in, like they're testing something, or like she's always in those battles.
Yeah.
But I like real battles. I can't remember one.
She does a few. The main one is like when she fights Tom, and they
Okay.
like do a little
Yeah.
frenemy thing for
Yeah.
the episode. But it like stands out because you're like, whoa, Sarah actually battled.
Right. Right.
She does a lot in Param. She
Yeah.
does a lot of
Oh, yeah.
exploring and kind of leads that kind of side of it, where she's always got scan quests she wants to do.
Right.
But I feel like that's a lot of missed opportunity to
Yeah.
have Sarah do more. I don't know.
Yes. I completely agree with you, because I feel almost the inverse of what I feel for Tom,
Right.
where I feel like I actually would like more Sarah. I'm like unsatisfied with the level of Sarah I've been
Right.
especially as regards the game. I definitely feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't like. I say I think Peyton's the best, but I do not know where I would put Sarah in that lineup.
Yeah.
just simply because I don't think I have a good grasp of actually how good she is. And as we've talked about, I had no idea what her screen name was, and I definitely knew the other threes, for sure.
Yep.
But I did not know hers at all.
Yeah, so I like Sarah, but they don't use her much. So.
Bummer. Do you think so? Each of the four, end up kind of representing like each of the four main tribes,
Right. Yeah.
like they have their tribe, like they play decks from their tribe. I have two questions, but I'll start with the Sarah related one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we have less of a view of the Danians because they don't use Sarah as much?
So, what's really interesting is, like, I almost want to disagree because she's so strong, has a strong presence in Param. She hangs out with Wama a lot.
Yeah.
And through a few episodes, we get an idea of how the Danians work and the Queen and Wama
Right.
and Mandiblores and all of that. I think we get a decent amount of Danian. Maybe not a ton. Maybe
Sure.
you're right. But I think because she has a strong presence in Param, we get a lot of Danian stuff. Every once in a while,
Yeah.
though.
I think there are episodes, like whole episodes dedicated.
Right.
There's a couple early on. There's one early on where I think the whole group gets captured by the Danians, because that's the first time we see the. You just pulled the card out. I just looked at this guy's name.
It's okay.
The main Danian guy, the general guy.
I think it's Odu Bathax.
Yeah.
I think that's the main guy.
Here's one of my other problems.
Yeah.
Maxor, Kaor.
Yep.
It's already gone. Odu Bathax.
Odu
Bathax.
I think there's another one that looks very similar that it's like Malakaz or something like that. I don't remember, but yeah, he's the general.
Yeah.
We don't get a
Prince
lot of.
Mudinu? Is that the? Did I
That's
get the Mepedian
that's
one?
the Mepedian one.
Yeah, look at that. I got it.
Yeah.
I actually think, honestly, I think I know the Mepedians the least. But
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. What's really fun, right? And we'll talk about them individually maybe a little bit.
Sure.
But Kaz hangs out with Hearing. He's
Sure.
like his underworlder guy.
yeah.
Tom hangs out with Bodil. Is like his guy. Not as much as Hearing, but
No.
he's around Bodil a lot.
But he's he's getting the inside scoop
Yeah.
through Bodil.
Yeah.
That's definitely.
And then Sarah hangs out with Wama. And so through those kind of connections, we see a lot of the overworld, underworld Danians. Peyton just chills out with all the Mepedians.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really have a guy.
He like walks up sometimes on him. He's like, "What's up, my man?"
He just high fives them all.
I'm like, this is a lizard monster. At what point do you go, can he eat? Does he eat me?
Right.
My first question would be, am I a snack?
Right.
He's
He's just chill with them. And
they're
like,
chill with him, to
That's
be honest.
great, but it means that we don't really have a character to connect with the Mepedians until like
Yeah.
the prince shows up. And there's like
Yeah.
a few other named Mepedians that we see and hang out with a little bit, but
I honestly feel like we see them played in the game a lot more even than we see them in Param. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I know them as creatures
right.
in the game more than I knew them as like characters in Param. Certainly less than the other three, I think. Like, and probably, as you said, like we have these guides in all three other places.
Right.
But Peyton's just friends with everyone.
Right. And the problem with the Mepedians is they're nomadic. They like hang out in the desert, right?
Yeah,
They don't really
yeah.
have a place.
Yeah.
That's really explored.
That's
So I guess
true.
it makes sense, and they're like invisible all the time, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and everybody else does have like a place. You're right.
Yeah, I'm sure there is in the proper lore, there is a Mepedian spot. There is a king. There's the king Mepedian.
Whoa. Do we ever see the king?
No, we never see him in the show, and he was never printed as a card. There's there's like art of him. He was going to be in the wave that never came out, I
Bummer.
believe. But we don't really get to know the Mepedian. Like, the prince shows up, and you're like, oh, they have a prince. Cool.
Yeah. I guess I never,
So
took one more step, but that would make sense.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's a Danian queen card? Like, physical card? Did they ever...
There is.
Okay, there is one.
Yes. There's a young queen. The Danians get a new queen in the lore of the card game. They get a new queen, and she was never printed, but I do believe they have an old queen card.
Yeah, and that's the one that Sarah
and Sarah scans it.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll move on to my next question about this.
Yeah.
So as representatives of the four tribes, as like our guide into these four tribes that we have through these four characters, do you think that there was... I don't know quite how to ask this question. Do you think there was an attempt... Do you think there was an attempt to maybe, like, have them represent traits of these... Like, somehow signal the tribe? Is there something about these characters that signals the tribe? Or do you think maybe that's not...
Like, in their personalities?
Yeah, like... I'm saying, are they randomly assigned, or does it seem like they fit? Other than character design, because Tom wears blue pants, Cass has red hair.
Yeah.
Peyton's usually in tans. I
don't think so.
Cass has kind of fiery hair, maybe.
Yeah, you could see... You could maybe make connections to it.
I think Tom
fits the most. Yeah. Where he's... The Overworlders are kind of the do-gooders... Yeah, at least on the surface, right? They're like the most traditional good guy kind of group. I don't see how Kaz.
Well, that's just one of the reasons I asked this, is because Tom seems to fit so well.
Yeah,
Kaz seems to almost have this back and forth against the underworld mentality.
There's like a healthy respect and honor,
right?
But there's still like a grunginess that Kaz just doesn't have,
right?
Like an anger kind of thing.
I don't think I know the Mepedians well enough to say, but the ones I have met, I don't know that Peyton really exemplifies anything that I can tell.
Because you get the prince is very they're like royalty up top, and that's definitely not Peyton.
No,
but he hangs out with a bunch of like chill dudes that are Mepedians, but I don't know if that's fits for all of them. So then Sarah has absolute, the Danians are kind of, I would argue that the Danians are more disconcerting than the Underworlders.
Oh, that's a hot take. What do you have? I actually don't know if it's a hot take or not. I have no idea what the chaotic scene looks like at this point.
The idea of the Danians, is this hive mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think, there's still an idea of they're intelligent beings with an idea of right and wrong and morality.
Sure.
But also they will infect you and turn you into a Danian.
That is true.
And that's...
Poor Rasnus. Pour one out.
Yeah. They got Rasnus.
Yeesh.
And just the way they interact with all the other tribes. I don't know. The Danians are probably the most freaky, because they... just the way they exist in the world.
Yeah.
They're almost a force of nature more than anyone else, because they're this hive of insects. I would maybe an Underworlder has this aggressive sense of honor.
Mm-hmm.
An Overworlder will probably try and watch your back. A Mepedian might be chill. But other than Wama, I don't think I would trust a Danian for anything.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, there are interesting in that it seems like every other tribe does not have a foot soldier class, that each creature seems unique.
Right.
But and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Mandiblor, there's just a bunch of them. and like that. It also seemed like sometimes they called other Danians Mandiblores as like an umbrella term, but then there seemed like there was like a couple that looked identical-ish. At least I don't know if I'm off base there. But.
No, so at the start of in season 1, there were very much just the creatures, and that's all you really saw. In season 2, they introduced kind of some generic, because there's kind of some like orc-looking guys that are like overworld guards, and then they've got the armored underworld soldiers. So they kind of have forces. They don't. Well, I guess in some episodes they've got like Mepedian random people.
Yeah.
But Mandiblore is like a classification in the card game. You are a Mandiblore type.
Okay.
And in the card game, a lot of Mandiblores, you want them to be destroyed, and that will power up. Certain cards will be more powerful the more Mandiblores are defeated. So the idea is you send in all the pawns, the little guys, and they get squished, right?
Sure.
And then your main guy gets really strong.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of the infecting mechanics can there's like some weird things to not only control your opponent's cards, but also get extra Mandiblores, and there's battle gear to make someone a Mandiblore, and it's part of their mechanic is the Mandiblores. So,
Okay, yeah. See, I didn't know that. I honestly I think at first I thought it was the name of a creature, but
oh, sure, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
but that makes sense. That makes sense. Like when I think about the whole thing, I think about the whole thing. That makes sense. But yeah, so I have. Sticking with human characters, so
yeah.
I want to stick with them before I leave. I only have one more that I want to talk about, although there is debatably two, but I mean there probably are more, and it's the therapist. No, I'm kidding. It's not the therapist. It's not the therapist. It's Clay.
Clay.
Go ahead on Clay.
No, maybe we'll throw in. I need to look at her name, Chrysella.
Yeah, is it Christella?
Christella.
Okay, Christella.
And Clay. They're both spelled with a K, by the way. I didn't know that.
You know what? It's a C on my paper because I assumed he was less pretentious, and that's my bad.
Yep. Clay.
I spent 79 episodes with the man, and I still gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Clay is there to make sure... right, he's there to represent maybe some of the scummier, cheat at the game kind of players that you'd expect to be in Chaotic.
Sure.
Right, he picks on the new people and steals people's cards and stuff like that.
Yeah. He's just an all-around jerk, I agree.
I think we've talked about this before. I don't know if you ever see Clay win a battle.
I don't think he wins one. I don't think he wins one battle, Nate. Not one.
And that's hysterical to me. I don't know if that's on purpose or even if that's true, but Christella, you get the sense that she's a pretty good battler.
Right. Yes. I agree.
You don't see her too much.
No. But here's the thing. This is the thing, right? Yeah. I am frightened of Christella. I am not at all frightened by Clay.
Yeah.
He's a joke. He's a joke to me.
Yeah.
I see him on screen and I'm like, that's funny. That's funny that he thinks he can step to him.
He's hilarious. They have big Team Rocket energy sometimes. I think
they do have big Team Rocket. That honestly made me feel a little bit better about Clay.
They're just there to cause some mischief.
Yeah, that's fair.
What's really funny is we've been talking about kind of the duos. Clay's guy is Lord Von Blute, which is the most evil underworlder that
he looks like the most evil underworlder. And Kaor looks like just the devil.
Right.
And even that guy, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. So it also, in that sense, helps you see this, sub-faction of underworlders that are, working against Kaor and trying to get someone else in charge.
Yeah.
And Lord Von Blute has a lot of Starscream energy, where he's just trying to usurp the main guy, but he's really bad at it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
the thing about this is, like, of the factions, it makes sense to me that the Underworlders have this problem, and
Yeah.
this wouldn't be a problem that I would expect in the Overworlders. I would never expect it in the Danians. I think the Danian structure does not lead to insubordination at all.
Right.
And again, I don't really know the Mepedians that well.
Right.
But it feels like this outward aggressiveness and over-aggressiveness that the Underworlders have. Well, this makes sense that there would be somebody who's like, no, I want to be king. That makes sense.
Right.
And so, like, it makes sense that it's him. Yeah, it makes sense. I just, again, maybe don't pair yourself with a, like, 0-27 God, I mean,
Right.
he is so bad at this.
You
game.
see him, to be fair to Clay, you see him fight a Codemaster. Or it's mentioned that he fights a Codemaster. Which means he must have won 7 battles.
Sure, I believe he's won. I haven't seen it.
Right, but you don't see it. And again, I think I've said this before, but like you get the idea that if he has won, it's because he cheated.
Yeah.
Right, he like stacks the match against, or he like farmed a bunch of newbie players and got his 7 wins that way. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. Hey. Listen, I'm fine with that. Get him where you can. I don't know.
You also
My problem is he's presented to me as a threat.
Yes.
But I'm like, he's not a threat. I thoroughly believe all 4 of them could swamp him at any time.
I don't know official ages. I haven't looked. You get the sense that like the main cast are in between like 13 to 16.
Sure.
They're teenagers. They're somewhere
Yeah.
in there. Clay could be like 25.
I believe that Clay is much older.
He's like in his 20s.
Got a goatee.
Yeah.
He has a goatee, right? Or like a soul patch. He's got some hair on the face.
So
That's
that's
not 13.
he's just kind of a loser that picks on the little kids in the playground is what
Yeah.
it feels like. I don't know.
Clay needs some better hobbies, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Listen, if this was real, this would be incredible. I would love to be. I don't blame Clay. I'm 27. I'd be there too.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I probably wouldn't be like hunting down children
No,
to like
that's-
steal their cards.
Right.
But listen, there are 25-year-olds out here in our real world who are doing this. So I can't. I'm not saying it's not authentic.
Right.
I'm just saying, I'm fine with him being evil. I think we need
Yeah.
like a villain, like a Team Rocket villain is like
Right.
almost perfect for this side, for the chaotic side, for the humans' interactions. I'm just like, can we just make it Christella? Because I do
She's
think
kinda
she's
scary,
a threat. Like, but I don't think Clay's a threat. And and it's because you painted her as like she has won battles.
Yeah.
She hasn't been in a ton, but the one she has, she almost always wins.
Right.
I don't know that she. I'm sure she does lose at some point because I'm sure she has a battle with the main character.
Yeah,
that she
they
loses.
beat her a few times, but
But even when she was in like I think it's season 3 when she has her sister, her twin sister, who is the opposite in color scheme but somehow
Right.
a twin.
yeah.
I think she wins that one too, right?
Yes, because
She-
Clay
well, yeah,
cheated
Clay
for her,
cheated
and that's
for her,
kind of the
yeah.
point. Is
But even then, now I
So I
like
don't know.
Christella more. I just don't like Clay.
yeah, I think they serve a really interesting part, where again the relationship between Param and Chaotic, where Tom will see something important happen, and he'll be like, "I'm gonna teleport to the leader of the overworld and tell him what's happening." And so you need someone else on the other side that's like, I'm going to teleport to like this really scummy bad guy and tell him what's going on. And that's going to create like conflict and tension,
Sure.
right? So it's really interesting in that way, where the conflict of Param is strangely right in the balance of these teenagers or 20-some-year-old, right?
Sure, whatever
that
they
like
are.
can teleport around in an instant and figure some things out. So they need a scummy guy to do that as well, I guess. So
Yeah, and I mean Clay serves that role fine.
Yeah.
And / Christella, I think they both serve that role good. It does make them feel. I like that you said Team. Well, you're really giving me insights to this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Jack Black and Team Rocket so far.
It's all connected.
That is that energy, because even when they go to Von Blut sometimes with this, like, hey, something's happening, it feels very much like Team Rocket is calling Giovanni.
Right.
And you're like...
Man, maybe that's giving Lord Von Blut too much credit, but yeah.
And honestly,
it's that
he's
vibe
not that
for
cool.
sure. Yeah.
But it's like, it is like that, like,
Yeah.
kind of like Von Blut is like, okay, all right, just go back in your hot air balloon.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I will say, at the very end, in season 3, not at the very end of season 3, but in season 3, when they find out how to go to the past and stuff, and they try to tell Von Blut about this, right?
Yeah,
And they say,
that's like
that
near the
was
end, yeah.
the one time that I was like, okay, you guys actually do feel a little menacing on this one,
Right.
You guys are actually. And, like, they even, like, they have, like, some kind of, like, ultimatum to, like, make sure Von Blut doesn't screw them on this, too.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this wasn't bad, guys. You guys did okay on this one.
They figured it out.
Yeah.
You notice that, like, in season 2, Clay and Christella are big parts of season 1. They don't have a very big part in season 2.
No.
They're just sitting around. And then season 3, they do some stuff.
Right.
But they're definitely less important as the show goes on.
Yeah, they're much more important in season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's as far as human characters, that's my main thing. There are other characters.
Yes.
There are many other characters.
Yeah.
But that was the only, like, I think those main characters, those are the ones we see a lot. There's, like, other ones that you could mention. Like, there's some Codemasters that one of the Codemasters seems like a jerk, and I'm just gonna mention that, but I honestly, it's not Krellin. It's
the other guy I don't
other
remember.
one.
I can't think of
And,
it.
like, he was, like, Clay, like, impersonated him one time.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay, he's not a jerk. Clay is a jerk, and he was doing that thing. But then, like, Tom beats him, and he's kind of like a jerk.
Right.
And I'm like, this feels weird. You shouldn't be a Codemaster, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish they did more with the Codemasters.
Yeah.
You only kind of see 2 of them, and it's really cool because you, like, beat them, and they give you this rare scan, and that kind of creates some of the more interesting storylines with Param, right?
Yeah.
As you get, Tom gets this scan where he goes to this secret place where, right, it's canon that Tom and Codemaster Krillin are the only ones who have ever come back from that,
Okay.
like, place with Smildon.
Yes.
And the blight, the big goo
man.
thing.
Yeah.
So they're really cool to say, here's some cool scans and some rare
Sure.
stuff, and here's this, like, subplot for Tom to
Yeah.
figure out how to help some creatures in Param.
Right.
So you could definitely do a ton more with that.
Yeah.
But again, with season 2, they focus a lot more on Param itself.
Sure.
And then, the other Codemaster comes in season 3, the second one. So
Yeah, because that's when Tom beats
Mm-hmm.
him, and then they get the code for the...
So if it kept going, then maybe we could have gotten more Codemasters, but they're not super important. I feel
Yeah. Yeah, and I bet there probably was. Like, you could see that you could do things with the Codemasters. You
Yeah.
know, if the show continues to go, you would. And so there's something to be said with don't fire all your bullets right away, and
Sure.
especially if they didn't know how long it was going to go.
Yes.
Because I imagine if they're like, we want this to take off and be a hit, then I mean, how many seasons is Pokemon now? Like,
Right.
you just got to keep going. So maybe save some Codemasters. But I definitely wish that we saw a little more of them, because I genuinely liked Krellin. I liked every time Krellin was involved.
Yeah.
I was like I'm super interested now. His battle with Tom was super interesting.
Yeah,
I was
it was
like,
cool.
it was so cool how he used the one creature and, like, took Tom's whole team, the first battle.
Yes.
With Tom. I was like, and, like, the point he was trying to show Tom, like, a different way of fight. Like, he was trying to improve Tom's battling ability.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's really cool. It's like it's big gym leader vibes. Like,
Yes, it very much is.
I'm a wall, but I'm trying to improve you so that you
Yeah.
can climb over
The
this
goal is for you to get
Right.
over me. Yeah.
which is cool. I like
Yeah.
that kind of thing, especially in like games like 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 a game like Chaotic.
Yeah.
It's good to have those kind of figures. But,
Yep.
But yeah, they don't. But yeah, let's talk about creatures. You alright to talk about creatures?
Yeah.
Do you have? So I mean, we could go many places, but
Yep.
I have a couple that I just wanted to cover. But I'm just
Sure.
gonna like let you go.
Let's talk about Maxor first.
Okay, that's a great place to start.
I just thinking of it now. I really like Maxor.
Okay.
If you just look at him and you didn't know, right? He's just World of Warcraft orc with Goku hair.
Yes.
Is what he is.
And by the end, I believe Goku voice.
Yes, it's true.
I think Sean Schimmel gets in there.
It's true. So it's really funny to see, right? That's where 4Kids influence is.
Yeah.
Like, we need this recognizable main guy.
Yeah.
So let's do Goku, but green.
He almost feels like generic, like intentionally generic. And maybe generic's not the right word. Maybe like uncomplicated is the right word. He's not. His design is not like super complicated. He is a green, like he's He's the orc from World of Warcraft with Goku hair.
Yeah, it's
like that is what he is.
Yeah. So I'm gonna make another comparison, but he's he's very Optimus Prime to me, right?
Sure.
He's the big, strong leader with kind of a gentle side and always wants to do the right thing.
Right.
You get that he's got a lot of honor, but he's also a really strong fighter, and that it makes him really cool. I really like Maxor.
Yeah.
He's really cool, and that's of course the big draw is like he's Tom's main guy, there's a lot of really cool episodes where like Tom loses Maxor and he has to go back and scan Maxor, and it kind of like shows some of that nuance to the idea, the concept.
I really like those couple episodes.
Yeah, it's really cool. Good. So I really like Maxor, but it is kind of funny to see how he was implemented.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I also really like Maxor. I like the Optimus Prime comparison. I think that's pretty good. I think it is like, he is... what I kind of like, though, is he is less Boy Scout than, I think, that typical character. And maybe this is because he's a green... he's an orc with Goku hair. But he's like... I mean, he's ready to roll. I mean, he's ready to fight. If, like... He's not against it.
No.
It feels like he enjoys it.
Right.
He's not like, especially the several times that him and Kaor go at it. Mm-hmm. It genuinely feels like this is not like he's all right that this is happening. Like
they're waiting for this.
Yeah, like they almost like this, and you from Kaor's side, you almost expect that. Right. But like, I think it just shows like that there is something about this. There's something about conflict that makes sense to Maxor too. Like he's like in that kind of world and headspace, which is honestly it's a little bit of a Goku trait if we're going to be honest. But I didn't think about that, but I like Maxor a lot too. I think the little bit where we got with Rasnus, the Rasnus episode, I think, or maybe there might have been two. It might have been a part 1 and 2 to that one.
It might be a two-parter.
I think we start to see where we get to see that little bit of background where he talks with Rasnus and how when he was younger he was all force.
Yeah.
And he's learned to then be this diplomatic guy. There's something about like, and it feels like that, right? He feels like the big strong guy who like has had to learn this diplomatic side because he's the leader.
Yeah.
That might not be the natural. Like his natural inclination, which is why when KO shows up and wants to punch, he's ready to punch.
Right.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But he is interesting and not like... He's not just... There's more nuance there and learning and growth, especially from that we see. I, by the way, really wanted to see... Because in the flashback, it was like... He wasn't in charge yet. His like dad was in charge.
Yeah.
And I was like, are we gonna see his dad? does Dad just look like him? I thought his dad was just gonna look like him, but we
Sure.
didn't get to see his dad.
Nah.
Which is fine. I just
Yeah.
was like, I was like, are we gonna? Which actually later on was interesting. When they go to the past,
Right.
Actually, I thought it was very cool.
Yes.
What happened when they go to the past? But,
Yeah.
And they meet. Name's gone.
Kiru
Yeah.
is the overworld leader, but he's Kaor's ancestor.
Right.
And that's interesting.
Maxor's ancestor. But what I like about there's like this.
Blue course, or
I don't know.
I have it written down.
Oh, you have okay. Well, I what I like about that is that there is something wild about Maxor that at least I can recognize.
It's Vlar.
Vlar.
I think it's
okay.
Vlar
Yeah,
is his ancestor.
Listen, I believe you because I remember hearing it and thinking that's not enough syllables, but
Yeah.
he there's something like wild about Maxor that's not. It's just like a untamed thing here
Yeah.
that like it doesn't seem to like be like an overt part of his personality.
Right.
But then when you go to the past and you see his ancestor, you're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is where it's from. This
Yeah.
is where this like, because he's the more like free, kind of off the wall, or like outsider kind of character, and you're like, okay, I see how this trickles down.
Yeah. It's cool.
And how those positions end up like slowly shifting over generations is
Right.
neat. But between Maxor and Kaor and their
Yeah.
anyway, but Maxor is very cool.
Yeah.
I like Maxor a lot.
He's great.
Do you want to go to Kaor?
Let's start. Yeah.
Do you have?
We've kind of talked.
We've
a bit
talked
about Kaor.
we've covered. I like Kaor. A lot.
I like Kaor too. He's. Oh, I will say, this is my favorite Kaor part,
Okay.
and I think it shows a lot of like the underlying character to him.
Uh-huh.
It's in the end of the Marillion invasion where they're fighting the big monster.
Yeah.
And Iparu has transformed into the big monster, which is just really cool.
Oh yeah.
At the end where they're
Yeah.
doing the big boss battle,
Yep.
and Kaor and Maxor are all powered up,
Yeah.
and they're like, we got to get him down to this negative energy field.
Yeah.
And they're like, how do we know which one is the real Iparu? They do that whole thing.
Yeah.
Kaor, like, this is a softball. Kaor could have absolutely pushed Maxor over the ledge
Yeah.
and be like, hey, Iparu, catch Maxor. But what he does instead is he says, hey, Iparu, and then he just jumps off the edge of this
right.
cliff into this
You're right.
destruction, like, below.
Yeah.
And I think that is, like, what makes me like Kaor so much. Is he's this crazy, wild,
Yeah.
reckless leader, but you also see these, like, again, he has a soft spot for Kaz. You can
Yeah.
tell that he really rules the underworld very carefully to keep everybody in line. Like, he still wants some semblance of order. And he's not willing to get his hands dirty and do
Right.
something crazy.
Right.
So he's a good subversion of what I would have assumed
Sure.
him to be, but he's still like low-key evil.
Oh yeah. Oh,
He's
for
still
sure.
kind of evil.
That's what. But that.
So I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like what you're saying. I kind of like that too. I like that aspect that Kaor is. I like his design tells me you're the devil,
Yes.
a buff devil.
Yeah.
That's what he looks like. But then, like, there is a little bit of that nuance. I love that you mentioned that moment because that moment's really telling. Yeah, that he would jump in instead of just pushing Maxor in.
You would assume.
Which he could have done, and feasibly
Still would have worked.
Would have been the same,
Yeah.
but honestly, it might have worked better.
Right, because he's like, does Iparu actually care
Yeah,
about me? Even
or-
he's an overworlder, right?
Why would he not?
But we're allied at the
Yeah.
moment, so that's cool.
And I mean, bigger fish.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I like. I just think Kaor's interesting. But
Yeah.
I like him. I think that the two work well as foils against each other.
Hmm.
I'm a little intrigued that there's not. Blue is not a bigger Maxor motif, but Just like color wise, it
Yeah,
feels like
it is
that-
green and red versus red. So
right. And it just feels like I don't like the color of the overworld is blue because that's Tom's scanner, right? Yeah,
yeah, it is
overworld
blue.
your
Yep, absolutely.
I'm a little surprised that there's not more of that in the main overworlder guy.
Right.
When the main underworlder guy is red.
It's just red.
That's just red with a loincloth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like. What's interesting to me is like in this world where some of the creature designs are much more detailed. These two are pretty darn basic. They are buff, ogre and like devil, demon, monster. Like
Yeah. And
there's not a lot going on there.
this is why I like to bring it back to Grolls and Gurks or whatever it was, right?
Sure,
And then
yeah.
it becomes chaotic, and then it's like from there it becomes a bit more anime.
Yeah.
Is the third iteration. So I think these two were pretty early designs.
Yeah, I believe
that carried
it.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it. And you can kind of tell there's other characters that are simple like this,
Mhm.
but like they are definitely like just not like complicated. That's not like I don't mean to say that as like a bad thing.
Right.
It's just like they are easily understood based on visuals.
Yes.
You can look at them and pretty much understand where we're headed.
Yeah.
Can I? Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I have a favorite creature.
Really?
And we don't have to talk about this creature for a long time because I don't really have a ton to say.
Okay.
But I am very endeared to a specific creature, and that creature is Hearing.
Yeah.
I really like Hearing.
Yeah.
I just think he's so interesting and funny a lot of the times.
Yeah. He's really funny.
I like rolling around with him. Especially like his weird position in the underworld
Yes.
is funny to me to watch. Like it seems like at the beginning he is the scum of the earth, but like at some point we work our way into Kaor army here.
It's really funny because he hangs out with Kaz. And I almost think that because he hangs out with Kaz, he gets to hang out with Kaor.
Yeah, that's what it feels
Which is,
like.
it's very backwards
It
of us.
feels
It's really
like-
funny.
It feels like he upped his status by hanging out with Cass.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. That's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
I just like him. I just like that in this world of like monsters that look terrifying, this one doesn't.
Yeah, he's like a little bunny goblin.
Yeah.
And he's like friendly to everyone, right? He's not just Kaz's friend
Yeah.
and he like is
Yeah.
mean to everyone else.
No.
He hangs out with everybody.
Yeah.
But he's still kind of, you could still tell that he's got his own motives and
Yeah.
he's kind of stingy and
Yeah.
a little rude sometimes. Hearing's great.
Yeah, it's weird that he eats Dractyl scales, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
but
yep.
I like in a world where like it doesn't we don't have any other examples of this.
No.
That's strange, but I'm willing to overlook it. I just like him. I think he's like a neat design, especially in this game. He's almost. It's not. I'm sure there are other creatures that are similar, but he feels unique in this weird like. In the fact that he is smaller than most. There's another character, Riren, who's like this too, and I think he's an underworlder. He's
Okay.
like the bat with the
Oh, yeah.
beard thing.
Yep.
That they both are like smaller, and like when I look at them, I'm like, I feel like you should be taken out. But Riren definitely is strong, at least in the
Right.
card game. They like when they play the game, he's not. He is a main card that Kaz will play.
Right.
But even Hearing has his uses in this game.
I
Like,
love the few times Hearing comes up in Chaotic.
Yeah.
They're like, oh man, he only has Hearing left. He's definitely gonna lose. What's gonna happen? Right? That's the context
Yeah.
of like, oh, I have to fight with Hearing now.
Yeah.
So he's not a strong card,
No.
but he's a really fun character.
No, yeah, he's not. Yeah, I like him as a character. He's
Yeah.
not like it's clear that it's not that strong of a card.
No.
I just like I like seeing him, and I like that like if they are doing any underworld things, almost certainly he's with them.
Yes.
So yeah, I like them. The other one, another one I wanted to talk about was Nadrin, because Nadrin is
Very important.
super important.
Yeah.
and incredibly interesting. I think even from the jump,
Yep.
I like very early on, Tom interacts with him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you had Nadrin thoughts or.
Nadrin is probably the most interesting creature.
Yeah.
He's. I really like that he's one of the more humanoid. He's like a blue person, and
Yeah.
that's the closest you get to a normal human.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like they're creatures, right?
Sure.
But he's like the Merlin. He's this.
Yeah.
There's your blue, right, for Overworld.
Right.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
There is your blue. You're
So his relationship with Tom is really interesting because he has to come to trust Tom over a very long period of time. But once they're allies, then they're really interesting allies together.
Yeah.
And then you even get that big plot point at the end of the show where like Tom goes back in time and meets Nadrin when he's younger, and so it's a bit more complicated. So I like Nadrin a lot. He's cool. He's another like good guy.
Yeah.
Right. He's not too complicated in that way. He's always trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, first of all, I think it's really interesting that he's that old.
Yeah. Yep.
And that like does add a whole nother layer of dimension, because he honestly feels like a little like hostile
Yes.
at first when Tom first meets him.
You can see why he's a rare scan.
Yeah.
He's very hard to scan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And like a part of him being more humanoid too is it almost like this seems to make sense that he's like, stop, nope, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like he would be cautious of this would make sense. And I love how like later, like when we learn about his like that he has met Tom and that he knows that you're kind of like, it's just interesting. It adds this another layer of like their relationship that was already one of, I think, the most interesting relationships between a human and a creature.
Yeah.
Or at least to me when I was
I agree.
like, I really thought that they're like the fact that like he's at one point slowly able to trust Tom. He like sends Tom on a mission. He like slowly trusts him. And I'm blanking now, but I think that's related to the Blight. At first, I think Tom goes to. Does he go to? No, he goes to somebody else.
A different character. That's like a caretaker.
Yes,
but
right.
Tom goes to Nadrin quite a bit, especially near the end for
This is
whatever's wrong.
I got Nadrin
Yeah.
in the brain at the
Yeah.
end. I will say, like plot wise, I'm a little disappointed, and this is not their fault because I believe that there probably was a plan, but I mean that apprentice. What?
Oh, his son.
Yeah. Where did he go?
Yeah.
Did-
That's a big question mark.
And like I know the series has ended, and we don't have that answer. And like it does seem like this. It just felt like when that episode happened, I was like, "Yeah, you had more here. Somebody had
Yes.
more here.
Yeah.
There's a notebook somewhere that has this guy thoughts
Yes.
on it because he's definitely not dead. Because it does not seem like he's dead
Right.
to me.
Yeah.
I was like, where is he?
Yeah.
Did he? How far forward did he go? Or did he go somewhere else? Where is it?
Yeah.
So I was like really interested in that, and then I was like, and it's over.
It's
Dang it.
over.
Which is, I mean, I get that. That's understandable. It's a
Yeah.
syndicated TV show. It's got to make money or it doesn't stay on. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nadrin's just really interesting.
He's very cool.
Yeah.
Maybe do a couple quick ones.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
they're
I'm
cool,
sorry, yeah.
but I don't think there's anything more to talk
That's
about.
fair. That's fair. I
We talked about Von Blut.
yeah.
Interest is cool.
Yeah, sure.
That's about it.
I agree.
Takinam is cool. We see a bit more of Takinam.
Yeah.
Don't know too much about
One of
her.
the first creatures in the show, right?
Yeah.
It opens up with
Tom
Mac,
fighting
yep.
Max Orver's Takinam.
Yep. Big change visually.
Yes.
By the way, in between those two.
It's
like,
kind of funny.
Yeah.
They redesigned Takinam 3 times.
Okay. Yeah.
3 or 4
You know
times.
what? Yeah, because the armor.
Yeah, the armor comes
In later. Okay. Yeah.
So she's one of Interest. and Takinam are like the generals of Underworld Overworld.
Okay, yeah. I can kind of get that.
The Prince Mudinu is cool. I wish
Sure.
we knew more about him.
I love Triceratops.
Yeah. The war beasts are cool. Visually, right?
I wish I got that episode.
Yeah, the episode's not on YouTube. You can't watch that one, but they're cool.
I will say,
Yeah.
as an aside, if you want to watch this show, it is all for free on YouTube.
It's true.
I mean, this is like the easiest access show ever. Type chaotic
Yeah.
into the browser. It's right. It's the first thing.
And it's there legally. It's
Yeah.
not like the old days.
You know what You're right.
It's there. It's there. It's supposed to be there.
Throw it up
Yeah.
for like 24 hours until somebody took it down.
Right.
Oh man, I remember that.
It's like
I watched
upside down and like in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the entire show of Bakugan that way.
Yep. Yeah. the Wild West of YouTube.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we dated ourselves, but they know I'm 27.
Yeah. So there's not too many other Mopedians to talk about.
Sure,
There's a
yeah.
couple cool ones, but
Yeah. I like the wizard one, the first wizard one, not the second wizard one. Although both are cool. They're not wizards in the show; they're magicians.
right, musicians. Yeah. Cool concept.
Yeah, awesome concept.
Yep.
The first one they meet.
Yeah, that
way early in the series.
sacrifices himself.
Yes, yeah. I thought he was really cool.
Yeah.
Out of the Mopedians we meet, I was like,
Right.
that's one of my favorite.
He had an episode. He
Yeah.
was cool. But the one we definitely need to talk about is Tangeth Toborn.
Oh, he was on my list. That was the next. Yeah,
that's
the only
that's
other
maybe
one
the last
on
big
my
one,
list, and I think
other than any Marillions.
the end
but-
of the series definitely.
Yeah. So Tangeth Toborn is like my second favorite. If Maxor's on top, then
Yeah.
Tangeth is like right up there
He's
with him.
really cool.
He's cool.
I didn't like him that much in the very beginning, but he like very much grew on me.
Yes.
I think as you get to know, like, as that character becomes more.
He doesn't
pronounced.
really stand out in the sea of creatures until later.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is, right, in the card game, his sword is like an actual piece of battle gear. And you like give it to him specifically, and it powers him up.
Oh, okay.
And that, like, you see that and at the end of the show where it's like his sword and it's his connection to the to Param.
Was there a plan to
Yeah,
do more
well,
there?
We could talk about that.
well, okay.
That's like the second part of the story that I haven't said
that's
yet.
okay. I
Yep.
just because I was like,
Yep.
I was watching that episode. I was like, guys, it's episode 13. I see the YouTube. I know
It's done. This is
it.
Yep.
And you've just introduced a whole other thing.
So let's. Do you have anything else about Tangeth?
I don't. I don't. I liked him. He was
He's cool.
He was great. I thought the general stuff was awesome.
Yeah.
I like. But that's it.
He's
That's
another
all I have.
cool character that Tom interacts with, and I like the dynamic of once Tangeth sacrifices himself, Tom like continues to battle as him, of course, because he still has a scan,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
But Tangeth is gone.
Yeah.
So that's like an interesting dynamic of he's not like dead, right, quote unquote,
Sure.
but he's essentially
Yeah.
dead.
Can't. Yeah.
So that's interesting. But,
Shockingly low amount of death, by the
yeah,
way.
if you kill a character, you can't make a new card. So
No, and I know that, right? I know why.
they gotta make a fifth Maxor.
I just.
So,
Are there 5?
there's a few. There's quite a few.
That's crazy.
They're all
I mean,
too
I
strong,
I know
but-
2, but
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. But
But this kind of goes along with characters, right? But Felthor, the Marillion,
Yeah, sure,
and the whole Marillion arc, I think, is the strongest point
sure.
in the
absolutely.
show. That's super interesting, to where I kind of wish that they had left it more mysterious to see if Felthor was good or bad. They like right away say, no, he's a Marillion and he's going to mind control everyone.
Yeah, that was pretty quick.
They do that pretty quick, but then the Marillions come in, and again, it's my favorite part of the show because it uproots all of Param, and it also like it's really funny to see like in real time the meta shift. Right, this new broken faction
yeah,
comes out,
sure.
and it's really interesting in Chaotic, where whoever has a scan of a Marillion just wins, right? They crush everybody else. And that's how it was in the real card game.
Oh, okay.
And it was this really interesting, on one hand, it was, right, the classic, here's this new faction, they're really strong, you should pay and get the booster boxes and put them on your team. But it was this really interesting way to explore the lore through the card game. Because not only would you have these super strong Marillions that just beat everything else. You're like, this is unfair. How, like, these my creatures that I love, right? Maxor has to fight against Marillions. They beat him every time.
Sure.
And then as the cards were coming out, what was really interesting is they would have a brainwashed affix. Not all of them, but some of them had brainwash powers. So as you were like opening the boosters, you would pull Hearing, and you would see, oh, Hearing gets brainwashed, right, in the lore, right? Now I know that.
Of the card game.
Yeah, in the card game. Yeah. And then other characters like Tanketh Toborn would get a new card, but he wouldn't have brainwash effect. He would have some new allied power.
Okay.
Right, because now the tribes are going to work together. And that's kind of like, it's a weird way to explore the lore of the story.
Yeah.
But with the meta of the card game.
I think that's really cool. I think that's awesome. I mean, that's...
Because the first wave, Marillions just shut everything down, and then they released a bunch of allied kind of ideas where you had to suddenly mix and match the tribes. And that would give you cool new attacks and cool new abilities that could beat the Marillions.
Yeah.
So you're kind of exploring the story in the meta of the card game. It's cool.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
And like, it's reflected in the show, right? Is the the Tom and the characters go into the Battledrome, and they're like, how do we beat the Marillions? We got to like test this out.
Right.
Which is, I don't know, it's really, that's like, it's taking the concept of the way Chaotic and Param interact with each other and kind of cranking it to 11, and kind of, it's now this puzzle, this ticking time bomb of a puzzle that you have to solve. And again, like at the end of season 2, they're evacuating Chaotic because the Marillions are too much of a problem, and everyone's got to get out of there.
Yeah.
And it's stakes that you haven't seen in the show yet.
Right.
So it's cool. It's a really cool moment in the world.
Yeah.
And then you get Maxor and Kaor teaming up, and a shape-shifting monster at the end, and it's a cool finale. So
yeah. Maxor and Kaor get new forms, and they're cool forms. And I love them both. But
they're very cool.
My Kaor bias might be showing, but I like that I like that he glows. It's cool. They're both really cool.
Yeah.
I really like the lion armor thing from Maxor.
Right,
like,
the gold armor
cool.
is very cool. Yeah.
What I like when I was watching the show, first of all, that's awesome that the cards do that.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. And I imagine, like, were you in the card game at this point, or did you not?
Yeah, I was. Again, I didn't get a ton of cards.
Sure.
But I definitely had, right, me and my brothers were playing, and I definitely had a Marillion-focused deck that, like, everyone got super frustrated at me and like had a hard time beating, right?
Sure, yeah.
Because they would get like water plus 30, and you just annihilate everyone with their water attacks. And all these like brainwashed creatures would have these weird powers. So like it was cool, and like again, to then take it to the next step. And the last deck I built was an allied deck that like focused on, you get more power the more tribes you have in the deck, and how do you mix and match them. And that was not only more fun, honestly, to play.
Well, yeah.
But it felt more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was, I mean, this is part of the rub all the time, right? When you like in most card games, I'm limited usually to a certain class or type or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
because of the mechanics of the game. And so when you open it up like that, it does
Yeah.
become like, oh, I can have these different people that I always thought were cool, like this this Underworlder I thought was cool. I can have them in this deck.
Yeah. And so some cards have the affix loyal, which means that they can only be in their own tribe's deck.
Dope. That's really cool.
So you'd get
that's still cool.
Yeah, you'd get some cards that would drop their loyal affix later on, so you can mix and match them. You'd still get cards with loyal, and you'd still have like a fully Underworld team or something. But
Which is cool though, because it's like the card game itself is coming out and explaining to you honestly what's happening. Like these guys got brainwashed. This guy is not cooperating with the allies. He but then he does. Later on he does. That's really cool. And I'm sure as a kid to see that come out was pretty cool too.
yeah.
And even in the show, what I liked about the Marillions in the show was they carry a good level of mystery with them when they're first
Felthor, yeah.
I'm sorry, these names.
Yeah.
When he's first introduced, he carries a good level of mystery with him.
Yeah.
And the whole concept is kind of mysterious, and because when they go into the name of the place is gone. When they go into the caves that are like that move them into the past and the future.
Oh yeah. I don't remember the location, but it shows them past and future.
Yeah, and that one, the blue spirit-looking guy.
Yep, don't remember him either, but
yeah, man, he's an overworlder.
Yeah,
he looks cool.
Yeah,
there's such this level of dread, future dread that I'm like, it's very cool.
It's cool, and it watching it the first time, because Chaotic does this a lot, where they set up this thing and they're like, isn't that cool? I wonder, maybe what could happen in the lore.
Yeah.
But they were like, no, this is the plot that we're heading towards the world getting flooded and the Marillions killing everyone.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
yeah,
it's cool.
And it just it was definitely that was, and season 2 almost was unique in that way, that it was it was like, hey, there's this thing. And then it did just follow up on that thing.
Whereas it just disrupts everything else.
Yeah, right. Whereas season 1 was like a collection of different kind of stories that you'd get 2 episodes here or there that are like a set
right
that went. But for the most part, it was, we're playing the game of Chaotic. We're exploring the world. We're we're doing things that you would do on a Sunday morning cartoon when we're just running. Where season 2 is much more like, we got to deal with this Marillion thing. I think that's really cool. But Tank of the Toeborn's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Marillions are really cool. The whole world is interesting. Before I move away from characters.
Yeah.
Your favorite human character? Who do you think your favorite human character is?
I'll go with Peyton.
Okay.
Kaz is almost up there.
Yep.
It's close. It's close.
Yeah. Peyton followed by Kaz. And your favorite? Yeah, I think you've already said your favorite was Maxwell. Is that true?
That's really close. I think I really liked the Underworld a lot more. I think because the first time I watched it, I had a lot of bias because I was an Overworld player, and you feel that a lot.
Sure.
I really liked Kaera a lot more this time. I think it has to stay Tangoth Toborn though.
Okay.
As my favorite.
That's
great.
I
think stays there. Yeah.
I like that choice.
He's probably the top.
I gotta say, so for it to be canceled on the episode that it was canceled on, it's not it doesn't feel like a final episode.
Yes,
but there's something about it that is a little bit.
Do you want to talk about the cancellation?
Yeah, let's talk about. Let's get into the meeting. We've talked about the world a lot, so
I had to look into this, and I may not get everything exactly right, but from what I can tell, the problem was that the show was actually doing too well.
What?
Here's what happened. The numbers were really, really good, and the card game was on its 8th wave, and it was planning its 9th. It was like it had them all designed out and ready to go. It just hadn't started printing yet.
Okay.
And 4Kids,
if you're gonna
4Kids sued the creator over the rights. because they were like, we have this hit on our hands. We want to own the card game as well and not just the show. And the creator was like, no, this is my card game.
Sure. Which is fun. And yeah.
And, you know,
I'll
I don't want to
comments to
say
the
that 4Kids was, you know, evil and the creator was good. I don't
Well, I'm
know
good.
if it's
I'm
that
good to
simple,
say
but
that.
it seems like that. And
I'm going to say that.
basically, let me get my notes here. Hiatus happened in 2010, right? It went for 4 years. And 4Kids, since they wanted the rights to everything,
Sure.
the judge ruled that they had to stop production on everything, cards, toys, show episodes, and
That's a
until the lawsuit was solved.
Okay.
Right.
I mean,
And
the ruling itself isn't crazy, but
Right.
yeah, it would be yeah.
so the lawsuit lasted 3 years.
Whoa.
And it was even ruled out of court, settled out of court, and the original creator won. I don't know if he won all of the rights, but he got a lot of money out of it. And 4Kids, a year or two later, filed for bankruptcy, not just for that reason, but they
I'm
were
sure it didn't help.
not doing great. So the problem comes then that 3 years is too long, right? Chaotic was dead by that point. No episodes, no cards.
Sure. Yeah.
It doesn't matter that the 9th set of cards was ready to go.
Right.
It was just too late.
Right.
So the creator has expressed interest in potentially bringing it back. But again, it's still a problem of rights and how they would do that and dealing with the risk of bringing it back. So ever since like 2016, 2017, there's been speculation and interviews with the creator, and he's interested, but it's all just speculative of whether it will come back or not. So this lawsuit was starting around the production of season 3. So essentially, I don't know for sure the timeline, but it seemed like halfway through season 3, they were like, we're going to have to stop producing episodes, and that might be it. So you can tell, right, the final episode, they're like, we got to finish Tangith's story.
Sure.
And they do the whole thing where Tangith Toborn comes back, but he ends up sacrificing himself a second time, essentially, and going off to the spirit world. And then what's very clear is Maxor looks at the audience, at the screen, and he says, "Goodbye, old friend."
I know.
The lines to Tangith, but he's like looking right at the audience, and he's like, "Goodbye."
Yeah.
So it was very abrupt, and I think things like Past Param and Nadjarin's Son and the Spirit World, I'm kind of assuming was going to be its own, like you could get spirit cards and probably have broken mechanics with that in the card game. And they had the King, Mepedian, and this new queen and lots of lore. It was all like set up to happen, but the lawsuit just kind of disrupted the whole thing. So
and like if you have to sit on it for 3 years, you slaughtered the momentum that you had.
It's
even if it was extremely successful. 3 years of you have to stop everything.
Yep.
You can't that's killer. That's detrimental.
And not only that, right? But if you're specifically invested in the show, right? 4Kids, even if it was still around, right, at that point they wouldn't probably not be producing episodes after losing. Right now, the TV show rights are held with some Korean company, I believe.
Is that why it's on YouTube?
And maybe that's why it's on YouTube. I don't know.
I'm sure they're making some ad revenue money. I've
don't
watched
know,
an entire series. They made some ad
contributed,
revenue from me.
So every couple of years, behind the scenes, they're kind of testing to see if people want it back. And there's always a very passionate small group of people that really want it back. But kind of the boom of trading cards, it's in a very different place than it was in the early 2000s.
For sure.
It's kind of made a comeback recently with kind of COVID and the whole like Pokemon craze.
That went crazy for a minute.
Yep. So maybe that would encourage them, but I try not to get my hopes up, but it's not impossible that it comes back.
Well, that would be really cool. I didn't even know there was a remote possibility that it would come back. Because one of the things I was going to ask you is there still a contingency of people that play this card game with any kind of like does it exist? You know how like there's like obviously there's Pokemon card tournaments. There's like all kinds of there's all kinds of things like people are still playing like Smash Bros Melee on like. I mean that game came out years and years ago. Yeah. So like I imagine there's some level of interest through like a group of people. I just didn't know how like organized that interest was, or if it was even still a thing that people did. And I'm thinking like if there hasn't been a wave since 2010, a new wave of cards, then there is a level in which the meta of the card game is going to get pretty samey. Right. Pretty quick. Yep. But yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't know if you even knew or...
No, I there is people still playing it, but unfortunately, a big part of it was the online. It's like Pokemon, where you get the card, you type in the code, you can play with it online, and that website went down. And from there, it's just physical. So there's probably a few like local game shops and a few people who still play it every once in a while, but it's pretty difficult to kind of foster that scene. It's pretty tepid, I guess, if anything else. But
yeah, and that would make sense. And like you said, I mean, if the momentum is killed like that, that's gonna. And I almost wonder if they can't. If in that halting process that they had to do, they didn't. I mean, obviously this killed a lot of the momentum that it would have had both as a show and as a card game. That's tough. I don't need any more reasons to not like 4Kids, but I listen. 4Kids did fine things from my childhood. It was fun. I watched it. It was fun. Yeah. Like I said, I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of other things they did. How they got Sonic the Hedgehog wrong so badly, I will never recover from. Also, their dubbing of anime there's some interesting choices.
It's such
an
experience.
If you have watched One Piece, I encourage you to just watch a little bit of the 4Kids One Piece. If you have not watched One Piece, don't do that. Please. Right. Please. It's a great story. Don't listen to them. But yeah, they have a tendency to do things like that. Yeah. And so like they're trying to make their money. I get it. This is a business. Yep. I don't have any not totally against that. I'm a little against this. This feels a little more, vicious. But that kind of sucks. I didn't know. At the time, again, I hadn't watched it or been a part of this scene, but at the time I definitely did hear about it, and I remember hearing good things about it. Which makes sense if it was popular and it was actually blooming instead of dying, and then it was killed in a courtroom. It's
a sad end to the story.
Yeah.
But again, maybe some glimmer of hope, and it's not gone. You can still watch the whole thing on YouTube.
It's definitely still here.
The cards are expensive now, obviously, but
because I'm sure
you can find ways to maybe get it. All the starter decks are pretty accessible. So
really?
Yeah, you can.
I wonder how much. The best Maxor is.
It's like thousands. It's like $1,000. I'll
bet.
Yeah,
it's
sure too much.
A lot in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there is and like you said, there's some kind of explosion with card games right now.
Yes.
And I like card games. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. There's definitely something blew up. I think during COVID. I guess if you're stuck in the house, you start looking for things to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. Pokemon's blown up. That's really interesting.
Yep.
That is what ended this show. Because if I, like, as an outside observer, I wouldn't have guessed that. I wouldn't have. I would have said, "Oh, maybe it didn't do."
Yeah, that's what I always
didn't
thought.
Like it, maybe it didn't do as well as I thought.
Because it was pretty niche. I didn't know a ton of people who were into it.
Yeah.
But apparently the sales were up and it was doing well, and that triggered some greed, I guess.
Sheesh.
Got the dollar signs going, and
for the card game, just stick to the shows. You did the thing you wanted.
Yeah.
You said I want a hit show. You got the card guy in here, and then you screwed him.
Yeah, so it's too bad, but
yeah,
maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Maybe someday. Yeah, that's a bummer. It'd be cool if it did. I think it'd be cool if the card game did come back.
Yeah,
I think that. Especially if there are people that are like still very much into this. And I would argue, like, if the cards are going for like a good amount of money, somebody's still doing this. They're at least collecting them, if nothing else. Yeah, that's really neat. This is an unfortunate story, but it's a neat thing to know about this.
Yeah.
Do we know? So this is, again, we're kind of in the medium. We're pretty much in the.
Yep.
Everything's blurring together. There are no rules here. I'm a ruleless podcast now.
Do it.
Do you got any insight on what the heck happened between season 1 and 2? Because it is not even remotely similar.
Nope.
And we talked about, like, there's, like, Takinam literally was just redesigned.
Yeah.
But like, first of all, I've never seen a show, and I'm sure there are others. I've not seen a show animated like season 1 is animated.
Right.
With the Flash.
Oh, the Flash, yeah, the 2D.
And honestly, I thought at first, I was like, this is going to get old. But, like, you kind of get used to it, honestly.
It's not bad. It's not bad. They do some really interesting. I think that the fight choreography in season 1 really surprised me. I think, with the dynamic fight scenes and poses that they're able to pull off with the Flash animation.
Yeah,
it was surprisingly not bad.
No, yeah,
going back and watching it again,
it is like shockingly not bad. Like I kind of expected, and it's an older show from like you said from 2006. I kind of going back, I expected it to be. Like, just not, like, the action part of it, not to be as intense as it actually is.
Yeah.
Even in season 1.
It hasn't aged too bad.
No.
It's still aged a little.
Sure.
But
I like season 2.
I think it really was a fact of they just didn't have a lot of budget. Yeah. And they weren't really sure how long it was going to stick around. So they did a lot of world building and a lot of lore stuff in season 1 and kept it pretty close to the chest, and then it kind of got some traction near the end of season 1. Right, the card game started doing well, and the show was popular, so they gave it an actual budget. Right, they gave it a big budget and redesigned the animation style.
It's almost, that's the part that's interesting.
Yeah.
Is that they made that decision that it was
okay. Go ahead. And I think they switched animation studios was the main reason for that. Thinking of it now, I remember them. It was an Asian company. I don't remember.
Okay.
But they let again, they're going for a real anime style.
Yeah. And that's clear. Yeah.
And they really lean into that with season 2.
Gets even more Goku.
Yes, it does. Yeah. So I think
up more.
Yeah, I think it was just a more realized version of their kind of concept with season 2. It's really funny because in season 3, especially, you can tell the budget maybe gets a little. It's still good, but you get a lot of the freeze frame surprised faces that just linger on the screen. Classic budget savers and stuff like that. So I can't say it worked the best, but I like both animation styles. I think they both do something pretty cool with the concept.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. It was definitely like watching it. It was kind of jarring.
It's very jarring.
First of all, and not only is it jarring, and this is a little bit, talking about the plot, but not only is it jarring that we go from this animation style, from the Flash animation style to the more like anime hand drawn style, but like that transition is done over a cliffhanger.
Yes.
So Tom like leaves Chaotic and goes like there's this whole like is Tom like a cheater, which I mean I was not fooled by for a minute. I bet you though if I was a kid I would have been. Kid Luke probably would have been duped by that, but adult Luke wasn't. And then all of a sudden we come back to Tom and he's now like hand drawn and he looks way different.
Yes.
And so it's even like it even makes it a little more jarring when you look at it that way. But I definitely I prefer the hand drawn style. But that's not really even a dig against the Flash style. I'm more surprised that they I guess if they change studios it makes sense. But
yeah.
I'm surprised that they wouldn't be like, hey, this cheap thing is working. It's popular.
Right.
Why? It is definitely. I remember in season 1 looking at the pictures of the cards when they were battling and stuff, and seeing the pictures of the creatures on the cards and being like, that is not what I'm seeing on the screen.
No.
And because sometimes they're relative, Maxor's pretty close, Chaor's pretty close.
Yeah.
But other times I was like, there's some other creatures that I'm like, wait a minute. That doesn't look like what's on the card or what I'm seeing.
Yep.
Which, such as Flash, I guess.
Right.
I'm not I'm not.
They can only do so much. And again, I mentioned it earlier, but the idea of they have the cards pop up and then one of them just explodes and they don't animate the fight.
Yeah.
And there's just some creatures that are never animated in either style. In the show, which is really funny to me. It makes sense because you can't. There's a lot of creatures. It's really interesting that there's a lot of creatures that were never made into cards, and there's a lot of cards that never showed up in the show as creatures. It's just how it went.
So there are creatures that never became cards.
Mm-hmm. So one big one is Screamer. If you remember the Peyton episode where he fought the music guy, Screamer never had a card.
Really?
And so he had a really interesting ability, right?
Yeah.
And he never had a card. And the creator said every creature that showed up in the show would eventually be a card. But again, that never happened.
Well, sure,
so,
but we stopped it.
So there were probably plans of a Screamer card and stuff like that.
Sure.
I don't know. But that was the idea, is eventually they would get around to doing that. But they were all co-created by 4Kids and the creator. And
okay.
They were part of the lore and stuff like
that.
It's just they didn't. You can only roll out so many cards.
Sure.
And you got to do another Maxor. So there's only so much room for new.
A couple Maxors, a KO or two. I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
That's funny. There are some the pig in a trench coat that I'm like.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. You feel like you might be tacked on.
He's an overworlder. He's there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's some interesting ones like that.
Yeah.
That's cool that Screamer... that's interesting about Screamer, because it is a whole episode dedicated to him. But it would make sense if that's where it kind of started, that we were getting there, we just didn't get to produce that. That's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Do we know what these cards that are... Have those cards ever been, leaked or released? We know what this last wave looked like?
The ninth wave you can look up. There's some card art. You can see some of the cards, but you can't buy them anywhere. They were never printed.
Sure,
as far as I know. But there's some card art out there, and I'm sure plenty more that we just haven't seen.
Sure.
And may never see, but maybe.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Hey, we don't know. Yeah.
Yep.
That would be interesting. I wonder how much money that guy got out of that lawsuit. Whenever that well runs dry, we're gonna be on it again. But that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, I guess before I move on.
Yeah.
What else do you have? Do you have anything else that we haven't covered so far?
No, I think we've touched on a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a very fun show. It's a very fun card game. Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah. So I'll move into the moral part. And
Mhm.
so and I like to do this. I think stories are telling us things. And I actually think this is among the podcasts I've done so far. And I'm trying to think. I'm going back through a minute.
Sure.
Kind of unique in that because this is a show that is definitely its target audience is children. The lessons it says are pretty clear.
Right.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And they're pretty, they're lessons that I think are pretty, good for kids.
Yes.
Like we were even talking about that episode where Kaz is, trying to get the therapist to think he's not crazy.
Right. Stand up for your friends.
Yeah, stand up for your friends. There's a lot, there are many of those, but I didn't know if there were any that you wanted to highlight or something else that you wanted to highlight. In this realm.
Well, especially season 1. It's
It's
really funny because they do the you can jump in at any time. It's a serial episode.
Sure.
They have a moral of the story, and then someone says a joke at the end, and they kind of zoom out as everyone laughs.
Yeah,
is kind of the structure.
It's
a lot of the episodes.
Yeah, you're right.
And they do that a bit in season 2 and 3, but it's like every
Heavy
season in
season one.
season 1.
You're right.
But I think it's really funny. I don't know. I think this was the intention. I like, again, the Marillion invasion.
Yeah.
Where you have to handle this story where you have these factions that all have these biases, and they need to get over that and work together to beat this big global threat. Now, Luke, let me tell you something that I realized upon watching this as an adult.
Yeah.
Is that in the early 2010s, the big conversation was global warming and the Earth being flooded.
Oh, man.
I think season 2 is about all of the world powers coming together to overcome global warming. I can't confirm that.
Sure.
But that just seems like what it is. And I would argue that would go over every child's head. Right?
I'm a grown man. I don't know mine. I got the whole Earth thing. I got that.
Maybe that's what they were going for. But at like a base level, I really like the idea of you have all these squabbles, right? These biases, and you have to work together to overcome something that this bigger danger. And right at the start of season 3, you're not gonna get along. But you can still have friendships. There's still friendships fostered, even when the tribes go back to their own factions.
Right.
For season 3, it does the alliance doesn't hold very strong.
Right. Well, there's no common enemy. I get it.
Yeah, but there's still really interesting bits where this overworlder and underworlder are still friends, and even this Marillion is hanging out with this Mepedian, right? And they have these really unique friendships that survive the alliance. So yeah.
I just want to point out that they quite literally melt a glacier.
They do
to get a giant.
Everyone who's
way to start.
Everyone who's working with the Marillions are brainwashed. Which is just an interesting. Again, I don't know if that's on purpose. It's just kind of funny looking at it now.
Sure, but my word, I feel almost dumb at this point. I'm like, what?
No, and the bottom line is you're getting a bunch of cool creatures, and they're gonna fight some sea monsters.
Sure, and that's that's what I was looking at. But there's something there though.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. I mean. It is cool. I think the whole situation of Paramus is interesting, and these different tribes, despite the fact that the differences between the tribes elude me. If it's neon and a sea monster, it's a Marillion. If it's a lizard, it's a Mepedian. If it's a bug, it's a Danian.
Yep.
Most of the time. But
and some lizards are underworlders.
If it looks evil, it's an underworlder. If it has not fallen into a category yet, I just assume it's an overworlder.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like there's a lot bringing all of them together.
Overworlder has a lot of mammals.
You know what?
And like animal,
You're right.
like very standard animal people, I guess. But
You're right.
I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, there's definitely, you know what? There's like huge global warming undertones, which would be big in the 2010s.
Yeah, it fits.
Huh. Yeah,
fits.
it definitely fits. I wonder if they're not saying something like that.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't, again, as previously discussed, I don't trust 4Kids, but,
At the very least, I think the strongest note that they hit is with Tanith Toborn. I think that's why I like him so much. Is like his sacrifice and heroism is like the show is like lifting that up and kind of saying here's the standard of like a true hero of Param is Tanith Toborn.
Yeah.
And again, he's not just sacrificing himself for the overworld, but for the whole world. So it's I think it's interesting, kind of uplifting that selflessness in the show, even for a bit, right? It's
and I think obviously I think that is like you said best exemplified in Tanith Toborn's sacrifice at the end, and even his first sacrifice, to be honest. But but even that idea, has been carried through this story by Tom, like over and over again, of this like where, to be honest, if I am in this world, I'm going to be like, I got a cool scan. I'm out. Peace.
Yeah.
I'm not coming back.
No.
I'm not getting eaten. But like Tom never views this like that. Like every time like a situation like something goes off, Tom is always like we said, I'm gonna teleport to the leader of the overworld.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about it. He never like lets it go, and there's that level of like a bit of self-sacrifice, but at least a view towards what is going to help the most people. Can we do something to save them? And if I can move that needle at all, I ought to do that.
Right.
Which is carried by him through the whole series, and definitely exemplified at the end by Tanith Toborn, who's clearly, gives up his life.
Yeah, it's again, they probably had like a spirit Tanith Toborn in the works for a card.
Yeah.
I would assume.
It feels like there was some spirit land stuff going on.
So, but,
I like the concept. I just don't. I didn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very much, it feels like a permanent goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely feels like that. And you know what I like? We're moving out of the moral again. But how torn up Maxor is about it.
Yeah.
Like, tells us some things about Maxor.
Yes.
And I like that, like, he has that problem. And then it's immediately right. Like he has made the decision before Tanith Toborn gets out of the wave.
Yeah.
And obviously that's what allows him to get out of the wave. But before Tanith Toborn comes to him, and Tanith is like, good job.
Right.
Like that was the right decision.
Thing. Yeah.
But that agony over like I'm like banishing my friend to the shadow dimension is like whatever we want to call the spirit lands.
Yeah.
I like that. Like that's like interesting. That's cool. And it shows that they have a deep bond.
Yep.
Can
I bring up? I almost forgot.
Bring up.
This is the last. This is my crazy theory, and the last.
Oh, you got crazy theories.
Yeah. This is the last bit of lore that was never answered from season 1. They talk about the Kothika.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
The Kothika is what everyone's fighting for, especially in season 1, right? That's the source of all power. It'll change the fate of Param. Right. And so your faction wants to get the Kothika. But nobody knows where it is. There's all these rumors. This is why the title is so important of the show.
Oh, we did allude to this.
Do you know what it's an anagram, right? If you change the letters of Kothika, it makes chaotic, the way they spell it in the show. My crazy theory, because they don't mention this at all, is that chaotic is at least powered by the Kothika, the whole reason they're able to go to this world. It's the bridge between the worlds. So I would assume, right, that sometime in the show they would finally get to the bottom of why chaotic exists at all, and actually it's the Kothaka, and actually we will bridge, right, chaotic and Param together to some degree. Maybe that even leads into, right, the chaotic or Param coming into the real world. You could do stuff like that at that point, but that's what I think the Kothaka is, because they never say.
No,
And-
they certainly don't.
And yeah,
I feel like they almost drop it.
yeah, they like really forget about it real quick.
Yeah.
And like even the Marillions kind of bring it up. But yeah,
Yeah, it was definitely mentioned like once or twice.
right.
Towards
But
the end,
whatever, right? The Kothaka, or I should say chaotic. We don't know when it started, but it was at least after the Marillion invasion,
Yeah.
right? And they mentioned some Kothaka stuff there. So that's my crazy theory, is that chaotic and the Kothaka are one and the same, and maybe that's where the story would have headed someday. But
I mean, I like your theory.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
it would explain chaotic, because they
Which
never
is
do.
unexplainable otherwise.
It just has these robots and this
Yeah.
voice, right? The voice that
Yeah. it does have a voice.
announces all
That's
the
a
arena
little
stuff.
quippy, by the way.
Yeah, it's
That
a little
voice is-
sassy.
Yeah.
I like how.
I like how it picks who goes first.
I was just gonna say that.
Like sometimes it's like, oh, you're the challenger, so you go first.
Right.
And other times it's like I don't like your face, so
Right.
the other guy gets to go.
Yeah, you're really bad at the game, so I guess you can go first, I suppose.
Clay,
I don't
you're
know.
a hot turd. You don't get to go first. I just like.
Yeah. So maybe that's some dude like doing an announcer thing,
Yeah.
but maybe that's some sort of sentient power.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to explore more things, even about that or about, but like, the Codemasters too have felt like always like a little separate from the humans. And it's not like, I'm not saying they're not humans,
Right.
but I'm also not saying they are.
Sure.
Because like it would be believable to me that they're part of this. They're part of chaotic somehow.
Right.
Because they don't change. You can't like become one. You could beat one, and they give you a scan. Can you? Oh, you're about to burst my bubble. Can you become? Oh no.
No, they like fake you out and say, oh, because remember Clay does
Yeah.
that thing to Peyton, is where you can become a
So this
Codemaster
is-
someday.
yeah.
But that was false.
Right.
So
That's what I'm saying. I was like, so it doesn't seem like this is a thing you can get to, especially because they do beat them.
Mhm.
Like we see several of them beat them. Okay, we see Tom beat two.
yeah, and that's it.
That is it.
Maybe Kaz.
I think like we've
I don't
heard
know.
that Peyton has beat one.
Right.
Did we? I don't know.
The idea is that they're super hard to beat. I think Kaz and Peyton have fought Codemasters, but I don't think they've
don't think
won
they've beaten
because they don't get the cool rare scan
You're
that
right.
Tom gets.
Yeah, right.
So
because-
it's all about Tom. But
So do I have to assume that Tom is the best?
he's beaten two Codemasters.
I
so
don't feel in
I
my
don't think
heart
he
that
is,
Tom
but-
is the best.
yeah,
I don't.
He's again. That's protagonist energy.
That's fair, I guess. But yeah, that's a good theory. That would be interesting. And then eventually they'd move in that direction towards understanding that chaotic is the Kothaka,
Yeah, I
or
don't know.
contains the Kothaka, is powered by it. Like, that's interesting. Also, yeah, the anagram thing about chaotic and Kothaka, gone. Didn't know that.
It seems like that's new to me, but
Yeah.
it seems intentional.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna be honest. The name of the show itself didn't seem like it was necessary.
Right.
Otherwise, the place is called
the place
that.
is called chaotic.
But again, if I go, why is this place?
you
called
could call
that?
it anything, right?
Right, and like I'm like, yeah, it's a crazy place, a chaotic, kooky place here.
Yeah.
Like I guess, sure, but like could have called it anything. That's cool.
Yep.
That's neat. Well, do you have anything else before we
No,
wrap
that
up?
was the last thing that I wanted to talk about.
That was good. I
Yeah.
think that was good. That's a good theory. I genuinely hope this comes back.
Yeah, me too.
I hope that at some point, I think it would be really cool for the card game to come back. I think if 4Kids has sunk the show ship, I'd be fine with that
we'll see.
too. There's like lore here that's kind of really cool, and
Yeah.
I think that deserves maybe, especially if there's lore that is just hidden. Yeah, it'd be cool if it came back and we could invest in that a little more. I feel very invested in this project at this
Yeah.
point.
Sorry about that.
No, it's good. It's fun. It's I got like 3 months of chaotic in, and I feel like I'm a part of this troop now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool. But again, thanks for being on. Thanks for coming on. And this time, bringing a series of your own instead of just being roped into one of mine. As always, people, if you have questions, comments, you can comment on this video itself, or you can email me at lifeslegendspod@gmail.com. There are no punctuation in that. It is just lifeslegendspod@gmail.com. Next month, I'm going to have my mother on, and we're going to be talking about the novel Peter Pan. So, shifting gears for sure.
Sounds like a good time.
In both guests and thing that we're covering.
Subject matter, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm excited to do that. So if you have any Peter Pan related questions, feel free again to email me at that. But until next time, thank you for listening. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, savor your stories.